Welcome. My name is Katie Simone. I'm a psychic life advisor providing life wisdom from beyond. I'm also founder of Soul Evolution Center. Its mission is to help you evolve into your best life. Today I'm going to share my experiences that I had in my dream state, or I call it my altered state of consciousness. Since my spiritual awakening, I've had many extraordinary psychic phenomena, lucid out-of-body experiences that I have been guided to share. And so I've created this video blog, which I call Chronicles of a Lightworker video blog. And I also share my experiences since my spiritual awakening in 2009 on my written blog, which is part of my website, soulevolutioncenter.com. Before I share the unusual dream I had this morning, I wouldn't even call it a dream. And I want to differentiate between what dreams are and out-of-bodies are. First of all, my own philosophy and my own experiences since 2009, I have learned that dreams are not just dreams. And so I never look at my dreams in this way. And since 2009, my spiritual awakening, I also realized that I travel to other dimensions, and sometimes I do go through a wormhole or a portal or an interdimensional corridor, as my guides call it, to reach these other dimensional realities. And these usually occur most of the time in my altered state of consciousness during my sleep state. They happen naturally and spontaneously, though at times I am able to initiate them as well. But they happen naturally and spontaneously. They usually happen between 6 a.m. in the morning and 9:30 a.m. in the morning. The dream I had this morning was extraordinary, and I'll explain why. In my other video blog posts, I share that a sign for me of a multidimensional experience is when there's an escort, and there was one in this dream sequence. Another thing I want to point out too is, and explain further, is what is multidimensionality. We all experience our multidimensionality in our sleep state, in an altered state of consciousness, which is what your sleep state is. It is just that some people are not lucid enough and don't have recall, so they don't remember the details, or sometimes not even any parts of their dreams the evening before. Since my spiritual awakening, I have become more of a lucid dreamer. Not every single dream or experience I remember, but I remember so much more than I did prior to 2009. And we are multidimensional beings. That means that we have concurrent, parallel lives at the same time that we are existing on the human plane as well. I know this sounds overwhelming and unbelievable, but I truly believe this is so, having experienced it firsthand in my altered states of consciousness since 2009. And I also receive telepathic messages. I'm able to hear information telepathically in my own thought voice. And I've heard telepathically that I am experiencing my concurrent lives and my multidimensionality. And the term that I hear that is used telepathically is multilateral. And so we have multiple existences, whether we are aware of them or not. And these are going on concurrently at the same time as we exist and walk the human plane. However, in our dream state, in our altered state of consciousness, some of us are able to actually experience and participate on a lucid level our multidimensionality experiences. And so that this is what I have experienced and observed myself in my sleep state. I give you this background knowledge as understanding to what I'm going to share next about the dream / out of body I had this morning. And how it began was that I woke up, but I just kind of stayed in bed in the early morning. And usually when I do that, the next dream sequence is usually an out of body. And so I did that, and usually what I do is I look through my third eye. That is the space between your mid-eyebrow right here. I look through my third eye with my eyes closed. Your third eye is your portal. It's a gateway to other dimensions. It also allows you to access your intuition and inner guidance. And as I look through my third eye, many times I notice the scenery or the landscape changing in my third eye. And again, this is with my eyes closed. And I find that it is very conducive to be very relaxed. And that is why I usually do this in the early AM, immediately upon waking up, but before getting up out of bed, because I am already so relaxed. I had a good night's sleep, and it is easy for me to keep this relaxed state in order to experience unusual dimensional experiences. And so I was looking through my third eye, and I did notice the landscape changing. And other times, as I've shared in my video and written blog, I might actually see a wormhole open up in my third eye. It could be a tunnel, a lightscape. This morning, I did not see that. I did not experience going through the portal or the wormhole. However, what happened was I became lucid immediately in a dream sequence, as I would call it. And the first thing I remember is I was being led into my old bedroom that I grew up in my childhood home during elementary school. And I was being led into the bedroom by an unfamiliar female. And I do believe she was flanking me on my right side. And I was not lucid enough to turn and actually observe her so that I can document her physical appearance like I like to do to share in my blogs. However, I knew she was there, and she guided me. She led me to my old bedroom. And when I was in there, I noticed that there were two unfamiliar men. One was perhaps in his 20s, and the other was maybe in his early 60s. And they were laying together in the bed. And to be honest with you, many times in these dream or out-of-body experiences, there is something about the symbology with people appearing in beds as if it's a symbol that they are in their altered state of consciousness as well. And immediately I sensed that they were having some kind of relationship, a romantic relationship. And I say that only as an observer. I don't have any judgment about that at all. And I was surprised to see these two unfamiliar men lying in a twin bed in my old bedroom. And I knew immediately what my job or function was, and that was to cross them over. I sensed that they were spirits that hadn't made its transition through the light tunnel upon physical death. I've had other dreams, other types of experiences like this, especially in the years 2009 to about 2013. And I call these type of experiences spirit crossovers. And I've learned that one of my jobs in my altered state of consciousness is to help these spirits or beings transition to their next stage of life. And so this was presented to me in such a way that I immediately recognized what the scenario was. And so I said to these men, "Oh, I know that you have not crossed over." And the older man said, "You're exactly right. That's why we are here." And I had a feeling many times in your altered state of consciousness, you may be very telepathic or very clear cognizant, which means you just know things, or you may be very clear sentient, which means you sense things. You're able to use your other extrasensory perceptions in your dream state, in your out of body, and they're very much more pronounced than perhaps in the physical world. And so I had this inkling, I had this feeling, this sensation that they might not cross over into the light portal, because what I have learned in my past spirit crossover experiences is that some of the beings don't make it through the light tunnel because their level of consciousness and awareness is not high enough. The light tunnel does not accept everyone. You cannot reach those higher realms of consciousness unless you're at a certain level of understanding and realization. And I know this from past experience. And usually what my role is to actually create the light tunnel or say an invocation to help these beings make the transition. You can say I'm an intermediary and that my energy is needed. They cannot do it themselves. They need another person, a bridger. And that has been my job, especially from 2009 to about 2013. Actually, in 2014, the amount of these type of experience had diminished significantly for me. And this was the first spirit crossover experience that I've had since probably 2013. And so I started saying my invocation. And I have an invocation that I share where I call forth Archangel Michael, and I ask and say sort of a prayer that the gates of heaven will open to allow these beings access for their highest good and the highest good of all concerned. This is my general invocation that I say in these dreams to open up the passage for beings. And I had a feeling that these beings may not actually be accepted. I sensed they were lower vibrational and weren't of higher consciousness, but nevertheless, I knew this was my job to help them if I could. And so I said my invocation, and as I was saying it, I noticed the younger man disappeared. He actually was hiding and going under the bed sheets and under the bed. And I immediately knew that this was not a good sign. And I said to him, you need to be standing here in the room when I say this invocation so that if you're going to make the passage, it'll be that much more better. And that's sort of the protocol. And so I said the invocation, and the older man did not disappear. This is what usually happens. After I say the invocation, the being usually disappears, and that's a sign to me that they've actually made the passage, and they've actually went into the light tunnel. And I immediately became a little nervous, because when I say the invocation and the beings are not accepted, sometimes they get angry, the people get angry, and they take it out on me. I know this sounds scary. However, I've learned from experience there was a potentiality of that happening. So I became a little nervous and more cautious. And then I actually felt what I would describe as ectoplasmic beings. I know this sounds like fantasy, but what happens is sometimes when I'm in the portal or traveling through the wormhole, or not traveling at all, I would say when I'm in the astral levels of existence and my altered state of consciousness during my sleep state, sometimes there are beings that are roaming those areas, and they're not high vibrational, and they have deformed bodies, and usually what they do is they latch onto me like a vampire, and their skeletal structure is deformed. And usually I'm in an altercation with them. And I'm still learning how to manage this better. I've tried various techniques, and I blog about this. But this was highly unusual because I was actually in my childhood home, and an ectoplasmic being was coming. I actually felt it around my legs because I felt the familiar sticky substance. And I immediately started calling Archangel Michael, Archangel Gabriel, Archangel Sandalphon, Archangel Azrael for protection. I thought I was going to get into a sticky situation, literally. And so I started doing that, and I heard a firm voice behind my head say, "You are safe." And this is the first time there has been such a communication like this to me so directly that I heard lucidly. Usually I feel like I am winging it and I am on my own trying to figure out what the next step is. And there's usually not any commentary or guidance coming in. And when I heard that I was safe, I immediately stood in my own power and did not get into that fear vibration or high anxiety vibration. As you know, fear and anxiety are lower vibrational feelings, and they restrain you. It is important to be courageous and brave. And so that's what I did. I stood in my power and didn't even engage with this this being, this amorphous being that was about ready to latch on me. And to be honest with you, I did not really see this being. I just felt it around my lower legs. And I also felt part of its, you want to call it spine or its skeletal structure, and I knew that it was deformed. And so at the same time all this was happening, about a teenager materialized in front of me. He looked like he was 14 years old, and he had strawberry blonde hair parted on the side, and it was very blonde, almost could have been a blonde, but there was a tinge of strawberry blonde in it. And he had fair skin and light eyes, and he had blood around his mouth. And so there's multiple things happening here. And in an out-of-body or a dream, that happens. Beings, people materialize out of nowhere. There's different rules of physics in your altered state of consciousness in these dimensional realities. Because the childhood home I was in was actually another dimensional reality, another dimensional platform for me to have this experience. So this young boy appeared with blood around his lips, and I knew why he was there. Many times when I start doing my invocation of opening up the portal and asking the gates of heaven to accept these beings, a lot of times many other beings appear because they understand that I am opening up the portal, and this is their opportunity to make that transition because they cannot do it themselves. So I immediately knew that was why he was there. And so I opened up the portal for him by doing my invocation. And I knew that he had blood around his mouth, but I said to myself not to be in judgment. It's not for me to judge what beings heavenly gates will accept. This young boy might have had an epiphany or realization just suddenly, and now he was ready. And so I did my job, and he disappeared. And so I sensed that he was accepted and made the transition to another dimensional realm for his growth and development, whether you call it heaven or some other realm or plane of existence. And then I walked to my mother's bedroom of my old home, and my mother was there. And my mother is living on the physical plane currently, blessings to her. And I immediately knew that this was another dimensional aspect of my mother. She looked like my mother, but perhaps 15 to 20 years younger. And I shared this in an earlier video blog, that sometimes when you see familiar people, relatives, or loved ones in your out of bodies, that they may appear slightly distorted. My mother looked exactly the same, even her body type and the color of her hair, except that she appeared 15 to 20 years younger. And I knew I was interacting with another dimensional self of her. And in her bedroom, she was actually had a layout on the floor, and I believe it looked to me like she was laying out a pattern. My mother is a seamstress in real life, so it did not surprise me that perhaps she had some kind of clothing pattern on the floor. And there was a mirror that appeared to my left side, about a height level. And my tip to you is if there is a mirror in your dream or out-of-body experience, to take the opportunity to look into the mirror to see what you look like. Because sometimes you do have altered physical appearance. So I looked in the mirror and I opened up my mouth and I realized I had silver sparkle flakes inside my mouth. It is just like silver glitter you might use on an art project, but these were actually flakes. They were bigger. And I was quite surprised to see that. There were silver flakes inside of my mouth. And let me just add one more thing. After I did that invocation to cross over that 14-year-old boy in that bedroom scene, I immediately started to feel something in my mouth. I felt like a big wad of cotton. And I knew what that was. I've had that before in other out of bodies. That usually means I'm going to regurgitate or something's coming up for me for elimination, or you can say toxin removal. And so my mouth started to get very full, and I had to go into my mouth and pull it out. And I realized that some of what I was pulling out was still attached to my actual gums and the inside of my mouth. So part of it was my biology. And that to me has been a symbol in the past because it has reoccurred more than one time. And that means some kind, when I regurgitate like that, when I feel something coming up in my mouth filling up like that, it usually means I need to remove or expel something. And I think what happened was, after analyzing this dream upon awakening, is that when I had crossed that young teenager over, I had taken on maybe some of his karma or his lower vibrational energy to help him make the transition through the light tunnel. And so I had taken it on, and then immediately I had to expel it because it wasn't mine to keep. But some of it was still attached to me because I have learned and was told in another dream months ago that when you do that kind of thing, you're almost changed. Because of my compassion to help him, to provide assistance to him, it has integrated into my own biology, and therefore my own biology was changed. So when I saw the sparkles in my mouth when I went into my mother's bedroom, I think that was a symbolic sign of that what had happened with my mouth when I expelled something that was still attached to my anatomical facial features, that it was some kind of blessing or recognition of good work, that it actually turned into like silver glitter. And then I noticed when I looked in the mirror, not only was there the glitter in my mouth, but there was light rays coming from my eyes. They were being emitted from both of my eyes, and actually my pupils themselves looked like lights. And so I was so surprised. I thought I had very unusual eyes. And so I think perhaps that was another symbology to me that that I was an altered state of consciousness, and that I appear differently, and also the symbology with the light, that I'm doing light work. I'm a light worker. And then what I did is I went and I sat in our living room, and I sat on the couch, and I looked across the room, and there was a doorway, and in reality that doorway led to a porch. But in this dreamscape, this doorway did not lead to a porch. It was another type of doorway, and I was almost going to ask my mother if where that door led. And so this is just to share to you how even your childhood home, the setting can appear distorted, where there may be unusual doors, unusual furniture. Things don't look exactly the same way they did when you experience them in your reality. And I also want to share that my mother in the bedroom, she told me that I shouldn't have done what I did with those men in the bedroom. I should not have tried to help them, she said. She goes, "Why did you try to help them?" It was almost as if she was scolding me. And I said, "I have to help. There's the only way I can help them is to do what I just did. That's the only way I can help them." And then she didn't respond. And so I think that whole interchange was just a reminder to me of the work that I do, that I am helping beings in these multidimensional planes of existence when I help them cross over. And I also asked my mother in the bedroom, "How do you like it here?" Referring to how does she like it in this dimension. And she said to me, "Oh, it's fine, it's good, I'm working here." And then I asked her, are you still married to my father? Are you married to my father here? You know, my father from my real life growing up. And she said, "No, I'm not married to him." And then she said something like, "You are." And that befuddled me. And if I found that when you are confused or murky, your thinking is murky, or someone has shared something that you don't understand in an out of body, there's a tendency to lose clarity and lucidity. It's almost like your mind cannot handle this confusion. And so that's what happened to me. I was like, what? I'm married to him? Because of course, this is a different dimensional reality. And that is not unusual when you have a soul tribe, including your current family that you incarnated with in this existence. You usually travel together in other parallel existences too, in different relationships. And sometimes you could be a daughter, and then you could be the mother to your own mother, or you could be married to your one of your parents, or one of your children could be one of your sisters. It could be a myriad of different relationships and aspects of that. And that's part of being a soul tribe or a soul unit. And so that she shared that with me on this dimension was not surprising to me upon waking up. But during the actual sequence, I was taken a little aback by it. And then I noticed in my mother's bedroom, there was an unknown woman. She had blonde hair, and she was tall and a little overweight. And she was there with my mother. And I knew even in the dream that this was probably one of my mother's escorts or her guides. Well, this woman, she ended up taking me down on the hallway to another room with another woman. And this hallway was actually not even my childhood home anymore. And I realized that I was being put into this room, and I realized I was potentially being locked up into this room. But upon waking up, I heard I was put there for safekeeping. And that's how the dream ended, when I was in this walk down to this unfamiliar room, and then the dream ended there. I hope this was helpful for you to understand some of your own experiences, and for you to start thinking about your dream time in a different way and as a glimpse into your multidimensionality. And also for you to know that sometimes some of us have missions or job functions where we actually do service in our altered state of consciousness. And for me, that one of my services that has been in the past is to help beings transition into their next level of development, and be an intermediary or bridger in that way. And not everyone has these type of missions. They are unique to certain individuals, and that is mine. But I do share that with you to let you know too how important it is for us to live a life of higher consciousness and understanding, because it does help us transition from physical passing to our other levels of consciousness. And I have seen firsthand when people are very angry, they feel very guilty, or they have strong ties to the physical plane, sometimes upon physical death, they are not able to make a complete transition. And then many times an intermediary, sometimes it is the angels, or there could be human intermediaries like myself that step in and provide the opening of the gateway so that they can transition. The world we live in is very complex and amazing. And I hope what I share with you has opened up your consciousness a little bit toward these amazing experiences that we are having, whether we are lucid or conscious or not. I wish you well in your spiritual development. Please check out my website, soulevolutioncenter.com, to learn more about me, my spiritual awakening, and the services I offer. Please also read my blog that is part of my soulevolutioncenter.com website, and also view the other video blogs that I post here, and to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you.